Crazy fact, home values have increased 68% since 2012. If you're not in the appreciation game, you're quickly falling behind. And if you're serious about joining the legacy game, you want to join in and listen to this episode, Your Home. Welcome back to Team Whittaker. I'm Barbara Whittaker.
I'm Huey Whittaker.
Homeownership is the next step in the legacy process. We've talked about learning and earning, giving, accumulating, and covering. And now this piece is the next step in truly expanding and bridging the gap to legacy. Let's think about homeownership as a fruit tree. If I were to plant a seed, you spend time watering it and giving it shade and making sure it's good, and it doesn't look like much is happening initially. It takes a little time for it to sprout up and to grow. But eventually you start to see the fruit, start to grow and become juicy and ripe. And, you have a whole tree and it continues to reproduce. That's how you can think about home ownership. In the beginning, when you purchase and you have your principal and your interest and you're making those payments, it doesn't really seem like much is happening. But over time, the equity and the appreciation is where you really start to gain value off of doing the same thing, making that monthly payment, the same thing you would do if you were renting. So in this episode, we're going to go into the details of why homeownership matters, what it will do long term for your legacy growth and process and your pathway, those common barriers that you may hear or think about, and really the steps that you can take if you're serious about home ownership.
And in Barbara's example, when you plant that seed and it starts to grow, when you first start seeing the fruit, you don't even understand or realize that it is fruit. Doesn't look like fruit, doesn't smell like fruit. The color's usually not the color, but eventually continue to water it and let it get sunlight. It turns sweet into the ripe fruit that you were hoping for and expecting to see at some point. And it's painful and it's not fun and it's not sweet in the beginning, but it is something that you have to push through to get the ultimate result and reward.
So let's talk about the wealth mechanics of homeownership. There's several facets in homeownership where you gain assets in your wealth building process. Having the ability to have an asset is vital to wealth building. If you have nothing to sell, you have nothing to gain. Let's talk about appreciation. When we initially started the video, we gave you guys a fact with respect to how appreciation has really spiked over the last 12 to 15 years. This trend is generally the same for as far back as we have statistics. The general rule of thumb, you buy good real estate, you're gonna have appreciation, right? Is that you're gonna see that appreciation over time. Of course, with any investment, there could be dips and you could lose and price values can go down for a little bit, but long term, you should see appreciation in your real estate holdings. So appreciation is one key. Let's talk about equity. Equity is happening at the same time that appreciation is happening. So as you're building equity in your house and you're paying down your monthly payment, your principal is coming down over time, you're building equity. That's actually an asset that you have access to. We are hopeful that you don't get stuck in the refinance cycle, but if you have the opportunity to invest that equity in something that's going to build you a higher interest or return over time, those are the opportunities that you want to consider refinancing. Equity is credit power. It's borrowing power. The next thing that homeownership does is leverage. I briefly spoke about equity, and that kind of ties in with that. You're able to leverage your house for other purchases, or if you're looking to get additional credit for something else, that is an asset that you can use from a leverage perspective. Next is forced savings strategy. We oftentimes hear that people don't like to purchase homes because they don't want the responsibility, which we understand. But if you're serious about legacy, homeownership is part of that process. From a forced savings strategy perspective, what this does for you is what you would typically pay in rent, for example. You're getting a portion of that back. So your monthly mortgage payment that you're making that is going towards your, paying down your principal, and this does tie into equity a little bit, but it's making sure you're getting the benefit of what you're paying out. It's not completely going away forever in a day, and you'll never see that penny again. The last key is legacy transfer. We always talk about leaving an inheritance to your children's children. Without homeownership, you're missing a piece of that. You're supposed to leave houses and riches, right? So when you have a home, it becomes an asset that you can pass down, you can transfer, you can set up in a trust. All of these things can continue to build appreciation over time, even if you no longer own it, but it's kept in a family. So, for example, let's say you purchase a home for $200,000. You've owned it for some period of time. You still owe $100,000 on it. Of course, you still owe money. We get that part. But if something were to happen to you and you needed to transfer that property, that acts as a life insurance policy. It acts as an opportunity for, let's say, your kids to be able to assume and take over that mortgage and have a house that they now own for only $100,000 versus what the current worth and value is. So there's so many things that you have the flexibility of doing that you gain over time with what you earn in appreciation and equity that you can then transfer to your heirs and to your loved ones, which is so important in the legacy piece.
Another option when you're talking about transferring real estate is a ladybird deed. I'm not trying to get too technical, but there are several ways, right? Barbara mentioned the trust, to do a ladybird deed to make sure that your assets are transferred appropriately to the right parties to make sure that the legacy continues beyond you. I'll speak to you about a few barriers. So a lot of people think, money is going to be the biggest barrier. And the first instance that we usually see or hear this in is a down payment. Well, how much money do I have to bring to the table, right? How much is this going to cost me? I don't have that much available to put down. There's a lot of different ways in which people create this as a barrier. They also just need to look at it as an opportunity, because whatever you do put down goes right into your equity bucket, if you will. The less money that you have as a loan, the lower the payment, right? So it almost forces you to save that portion depending on, market conditions, et cetera. But ultimately though, you don't always need a lot of money to put down. You don't always need 20% or 30% to put down to purchase a home. The next one is credit. People don't think their credit's where it needs to be. And, to be honest, a lot of times it's not. But it doesn't mean that it's a long-term issue. It can be an intermediate or short-term fix, just doing a few different things that we've discussed before to get yourself in a position where you can purchase a home. So that doesn't always need to be a barrier. It maybe takes a few extra months or half a year or a year to get you to the place that you want to be. Another one is the responsibility of a home. It's a responsibility. It does take maintenance and upkeep and management. You can't just do nothing and expect your home to appreciate the same way as maybe the neighbors' homes are appreciating. There's a lot of upkeep that does come at home, and people don't want to deal or have that responsibility. And that is something that you need to be ready for.
Another thing I want to add to that is we don't want you to think that we're tone deaf to the affordability issues that currently exist. We are well aware. However, our response to that is always going to be strategy gets you to your final destination. Not having a plan, not talking about it, not thinking through it, not understanding the options and the possibilities are where people get hung up. And we just encourage to not dismiss the opportunity that is in front of you with home ownership. When I was growing up, I said I'm going to own a home by 21, happened by 22, didn't have a lot of money to my name. It was very difficult to do, had to jump through a lot of hoops, but to this day, we still own that home. We're not tone deaf to that. We just hope that, maybe you come up with a creative strategy or solution to the issues of affordability. A lot of times we hear that, you can't afford what your current lifestyle calls for. And maybe you need to move into something that doesn't meet your current needs and wants. However, that's where sacrifice comes in to build something long-term. Maybe it is that you are going in on, you need to have a roommate that is helping you pay the mortgage for a particular period of time. It's uncomfortable. Growth is always uncomfortable. So don't be discouraged by the steps that you may have to take in order to achieve this particular step in the process. So here are the steps to home ownership. 1, know your numbers. You're going to have to figure out where you are. You're going to have to talk to people. We've talked about this in previous videos. You'll talk to realtors, you'll talk to loan officers to understand for your particular situation what you need to do and how you need to progress.
So hopefully you've listened to the previous videos and you're building your team.
Next, you're going to need to make sure you have savings. We never encourage anybody to be house poor. So you want to make sure you have those savings that we talked about in prior videos, and that you'll also need to build for your down payment. So we have given you strategies in the past about buckets. You may have your emergency savings fund. You may have a bucket for your down payment fund. You may have a bucket for vacation. Whatever your buckets look like, you'll need to make sure you have your funds for a rainy day, and then you're building for your down payment so that you're not going to be house poor, and that you have funds to actually furnish the house or over time take care of the house if necessary. The third thing you should do is explore down payment assistance programs. There's plenty of programs out there. I'm often surprised at how many times buyers do not look into the options that are available for them from a homeowner assistance viewpoint or down payment assistance viewpoint. There's several programs that are available that you should look into. Maybe you qualify for one or some. Next is, if you already own a home, going around in the legacy circle again, you will be talking about owning a second property, right? House hacking is a way to continue to grow your equity. Remember, we mentioned that 45% of net worth comes from equity. So reiterating that this piece is extremely important, you want to look into having more than one home or property that you own, because real estate is very important in that process. Last, you want to consider what your long-term strategy is. One of the things I always talk about with buyers is, what is their plan? What are they looking to achieve? What are they looking to accomplish? Because that determines what your next steps look like. So you should always understand, are you looking for your forever home and you feel comfortable? You want to find a place that you're going to be for the next 20, 30, 40 years of your life, and you want that home to remain in the name of the family so it can be passed down for years and years and generations to come? Or are you, more of the investor type where you want to buy a home, you want a house hack, move into the next home, buy another home, buy a real, all those key points are important in determining what your strategy looks like and how you should start and how you should continue.
So Barbara gave you an ear full of knowledge. You mentioned that we fully understand that a lot of information all at one time can be overwhelming. So just take it in steps. She just gave you practical steps in order to lay out a plan. If you take all the steps, again, consult your team that you've been building from the past videos, and then start and move forward. You'll be at a place better than where you previously have been. It's a guarantee. How far you would be, it depends on your circumstances, your situation, but you'll be better off because you'll at least have the knowledge to know how to move forward or when you can move forward or if you can even move forward at the moment, right? So a lot of things can take hold quickly, but the first step is applying what you mentioned. If this is a real thing, you've been thinking about it, you've been wanting to do it, you want a second home, all of these things need to take place. So I would just tell you to apply them, but it is a lot of information. So make sure you sit down, kind of look over the whole thing, and then start to strategize.
So we appreciate you guys tuning in. Until next time, start strong, grow bold, be fruitful.